They raise the Black Power fist on stage, but behind closed doors, they replace the Black community one policy at a time. Today, I'm exposing the leaders who use our struggle as a slogan, while abandoning us in reality. In September 2022, New York Attorney General Letitia James made national headlines when she filed one of the most high-profile civil cases in recent memory against former President Donald Trump and his sprawling business empire. Her office accused Trump and his sons of artificially inflating the value of their assets: skyscrapers, golf clubs, penthouses, brand holdings, in order to obtain favorable lending terms and insurance advantages. To her supporters, the case represented accountability finally reaching a man who had long been seen as operating above consequence. To her critics, it was political theater disguised as law enforcement. For 11 weeks, the nation watched the proceedings unfold like a courtroom drama. Trump arrived defiant, flanked by lawyers and cameras. James stood resolute, promising to expose what she described as years of financial misrepresentation. Witnesses came and went. Spreadsheets and valuations were debated like moral arguments. Cable news networks ran constant coverage, pundits framed the battle as historic, and online debates raged with near-religious intensity. When the verdict arrived, it echoed like a thunderclap across the political landscape. The court ruled against Trump. He was ordered to pay nearly $450 million in penalties. Supporters of James hailed it as a watershed moment, a symbol of institutional strength. Headlines praised her as a warrior for truth. Talk shows described her as fearless. Opinion writers positioned her as a rising star in national politics. In progressive circles, her name floated as a future cabinet member or even a presidential contender. But imagine now that the wheel of fate turned. Picture a future where the roles reversed, not as a reflection of reality, but as a dramatic hypothetical, a political mirror held up to power to explore how quickly fortunes can shift. In this alternate scenario, not long after securing her courtroom triumph, James would find herself confronting a storm of her own. Rumors would begin quietly, whispers in legal circles, murmurs in political backrooms. Then an announcement, sharp and shocking. Federal prosecutors had brought charges against her involving alleged bank-related offenses tied to the purchase of a second home in Norfolk, Virginia. A woman who once stood confidently at the podium as prosecutor now found herself standing there in defense. Instead of presenting evidence, she confronted it. Instead of building a case, she picked one apart. Cameras still followed her, but the tone changed, questioning instead of praising, probing instead of celebrating. The public narrative flipped with brutal speed. Commentators who once cast her as a hero now dissected her ethics. Former allies suddenly demurred when asked for support. Opponents, long frustrated by her stance against Trump, arrived with clips of her past speeches, replaying her words with bitter irony. No one is above the law. Accountability applies to all. Once rallying cries, now wielded against her. In this imagined world, James would release statements proclaiming her innocence, calling the accusations politically motivated, urging the public not to rush to judgment. Her voice, once commanding, would sound different, sharper, more urgent, touched by a hint of vulnerability. Not weakness, but the vulnerability that comes when someone accustomed to wielding power suddenly finds herself exposed to it. Her legal team would stand beside her, a mirror image of the team Trump once assembled. They would argue procedural overreach, flawed allegations, and prosecutorial zeal. Commentators would question whether the case was retribution or irony. Supporters would say she was being targeted for daring to challenge a political titan. Critics would say justice was catching up. Public opinion would fracture instantly. Some would call for patience, reminding viewers of the presumption of innocence. Others would point to poetic justice. She wanted to hold others accountable. Now she faces accountability. In the fictional press conferences that followed, James would speak of resilience, of fighting for fairness, of believing the truth would prevail. Yet the tone beneath the surface would reveal something raw, the fear of watching one's legacy teeter on the edge, the shock of seeing allies distance themselves, the sting of headlines once celebratory now coated in skepticism, and the world would watch, fascinated. Because nothing captivates the public like a reversal of power. The idea that the prosecutor could become the prosecuted is a story as old as politics itself, a reminder that authority is never permanent. and that the roles in our civic dramas can flip without warning. News anchors would replay old footage of her victory speech against Trump, juxtaposing it against new footage of her defending herself. Analysts would debate whether justice was consistent or whether justice was weaponized. Social media would turn the saga into a battleground of ideology and ego, sympathy and schadenfreude. Through it all, one question would hang in the air. How does it feel when the system you once commanded now stands in judgment of you? And in this alternate universe, not bound by reality but shaped by curiosity, Letitia James would wrestle not only with legal motions and court dates, but with perception, reputation, power, and the brutal truth that public sentiment shifts faster than legal briefs can be filed. She would learn, as so many public figures do in political fiction, that victory is fragile and that authority is never guaranteed. Her supporters would whisper about redemption. Her critics would campaign for consequences. She would stand between both worlds, navigating the same uncertain terrain she once forced others to walk. And somewhere in the background, unseen but unmistakable, the lessons of ambition, justice, and retribution would loom, timeless, complex, and painfully human. This isn't reality. It's a hypothetical, a thought experiment, a dramatic mirror held up to the nature of political battles, reminding us that the line between hunter and hunted can become razor thin, and the hand that points one day may be the hand in cuffs the next.
See, I've learned to stand on the shoulders of my ancestors who've been before, who came before me and weathered the storm. And despite being seared with scars, they survived. And if they can survive, so will we.
So here's the scene. Letitia James steps up to the podium, raising the Black Power fist, a powerful symbol of solidarity, resistance, and the long struggle of Black Americans. But she does that while supporting Zohran Mamdani, the Democrat aspiring to become mayor of New York City, who isn't Black but of Ugandan Indian descent. Why invoke that specific symbol of Black empowerment in his favor? What makes it more eyebrow-raising? Mamdani apparently admitted to adopting a persona that leaned closer to African American in order to boost his candidacy at elite schools. That alone triggers a question. When someone uses the imagery and history of Black struggle, but the candidate they back doesn't share that heritage, what message is being sent? And to whom? And James isn't alone. Numerous Black Democratic politicians now use gestures or symbolism tied to Black liberation, while endorsing candidates from other racial or ethnic backgrounds. It raises questions about authenticity, strategy, and whether such symbolism becomes broadly inclusive or diluted into political theater.
Legal aliens. I don't know if that's
well, that's the legal term. Well, I'm not going into political.
The legal term for my people were slaves. You want me to use that term too? So look, let's just get the language right. We're talking about undocumented individuals that are human beings. The last thing that I'm going to do is accept the type of racist, nasty language to describe human.
During a public event, someone in the crowd challenged Mayor Brandon Johnson over immigration, referring to undocumented migrants as illegal. Instead of addressing the concern directly, Johnson pivoted to a historical comparison, invoking the Black struggle. Black people were once called slaves. Should we still be labeled that today? The response felt misplaced. Rather than engaging the actual question about immigration policy, he attempted to link criticisms of undocumented immigration to the language used during slavery. It's the same rhetorical move Letitia James used when discussing her legal battle with Donald Trump, framing her situation as part of a collective Black struggle, almost as if political or legal obstacles faced by Democratic leaders are synonymous with the hardships Black Americans endured historically. The result? A narrative where criticism of immigration policy becomes equated with calling Black citizens slaves, suggesting the fight for immigrant rights and Black civil rights are interchangeable. But that raises an uncomfortable point. Does this kind of messaging dilute the specificity and weight of Black history? When Black political leaders merge every marginalized group into one shared experience, immigrants, LGBTQ communities, any oppressed population, it risks flattening the uniquely painful and complex reality of Black American history. It can feel as though Black struggles are used not for Black advancement, but as a universal emotional lever to support other agendas. We saw this dynamic in Chicago when migrants first began arriving. Black residents were encouraged to welcome them as brothers and sisters in struggle, because discrimination links all oppressed groups. Yet many Black Chicagoans later questioned whether this broad solidarity ultimately served them, or whether their own community's needs and challenges were overshadowed in the process.
What's going on with the migrant crisis here in Chicago? So I will tell you right now, I'm a person that lives on the south side of Chicago, and the migrants that have come in, at one point they were coming in and we were feeling very sorry for them because they came in at a time where the weather was cold. So we're seeing all these people in tents and all this. And
a woman from Chicago spoke passionately about how she initially supported welcoming migrants into the city. She truly felt for them. But then she noticed something that troubled her. She began seeing new arrivals receiving what she describes as generous assistance, thousands in benefits, financial support, paid-for rent, and free services like internet access. Meanwhile, she watched longtime Black residents in the same city struggling, receiving none of those resources. To her, that imbalance sent a painful message. While Black communities continue dealing with homelessness and economic hardship, newcomers seemed to be prioritized. In her view, it reflected a pattern. The needs of Black residents sidelined while others are elevated. But the speaker didn't stop there. She brings up a deeply emotional and historical critique. Figures in Democratic history who, according to her, held deeply harmful views about Black people, specifically referencing Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood. Sanger's documented connection to eugenics movements and comments about marginalized groups have long been controversial, and in the speaker's telling, Sanger explicitly targeted Black communities and used the language of empowerment to promote policies she believed would limit Black births. She then points to modern Democratic leaders who, she argues, praise Sanger or align with platforms influenced by her legacy. For example, she highlights Hillary Clinton speaking favorably about Sanger's work and questions why such a figure ever received overwhelming Black voter support. To her, it symbolizes a troubling contradiction. A party that claims to support Black progress while praising someone associated with ideas that harmed Black communities. Fast forward to the present, and she sees echoes of that history. Leaders like Brandon Johnson and Letitia James speak about supporting Black people, she argues, yet seem more vocal when linking the Black struggle to other causes, immigration, LGBTQ rights, or broader coalitions. Rarely, she says, do they champion independent Black economic empowerment, land ownership, institutional control, or community-led education, the tools other groups use to build lasting power. Instead, she believes Black issues are consistently blended into broader narratives, Black and brown, Black and LGBTQ, Black and trans, rather than being addressed directly. And while symbolic solidarity is promoted, she sees vital problems in Black communities going unaddressed: underfunded schools, lack of community-run institutions, and limited economic control. Voices inside the Black community echo these concerns, she notes. Educators and community leaders argue that Black neighborhoods and schools remain under-resourced and constrained, unable to chart their own course. According to this perspective, the community receives scraps, and time has run out to avoid confronting the issue head-on. So the question she raises is pointed. If Democratic leaders truly prioritize Black communities, why do they rarely champion Black-centered investment, Black institutions, and full community autonomy? Why does Black history surface most loudly only when it reinforces other political agendas? To her, the pattern is clear. Symbolic allyship when convenient, but silence when Black communities demand independent progress and real structural change.
To you that don't know how to run a business, you that's always late, you always have high-ass prices, you never have the shit in stock, or you just don't have the shit at all, or you're not present, or you're whatever the case may be. Your shit never open. Fuck you, nigga.
Now picture this. A brother is breaking down the challenges inside Black communities, especially when it comes to Black-owned businesses. Most of us have been in a barbershop or sat in a small local restaurant and seen the struggle firsthand. And sure, government leaders aren't entrepreneurs. Nobody expects them to run businesses. But they do have the power to create programs that make growth possible, yet time and time again, they don't. If our leaders truly invested in strengthening Black businesses, offering support, mentorship, capital, and real development, The payoff would be huge. Stronger businesses mean more jobs, more wealth circulating in Black neighborhoods, higher tax bases, and real community stability. That's a feedback loop every successful community in America already understands. But instead, many Black mayors seem uninterested in building that foundation. They put up symbols of power, fists in the air, fiery speeches, but it's symbolism without infrastructure. What looks like empowerment starts feeling like performance. Because while they preach Black power, they simultaneously attach it to every other group: white allies, Latino coalitions, broader progressive movements. Meanwhile, those same groups show up for the rally, chant alongside us, and then go back to their own neighborhoods and invest in themselves first. So when a politician like Letitia James throws up the Black power fist, some folks don't see strength. They see a gesture disconnected from economic reality. Real power isn't just slogans. It's money, ownership, community-built institutions, and the discipline to build what we need instead of tying our struggle to everyone else's cause. Yet what we see instead is a pattern. Use Black pain to justify other agendas, especially around immigration or progressive identity politics, while the core needs of Black neighborhoods are quietly ignored. And here's the punchline. The very groups our politicians ask us to struggle alongside rarely show that same loyalty back. Because their priority is their own people and their own communities, as it should be. Meanwhile, Black America keeps hearing the same pitch: care for everyone else first, and your time will come later. But later never arrives. Ask Black Democrats in power about Black business development. Ask them about trade schools, ownership, land, and building institutions that belong to us. Ask what direct policies they have pushed to empower Black colleges, Black workforce pipelines, or Black manufacturing. Too often, the answer is silence. And here's the irony. Black people are some of the biggest economic engines in this country. Our dollars drive industries. Our culture drives markets. But ownership? Practically non-existent. We spend everywhere, yet we own almost nothing. Beauty stores in our neighborhoods? Not ours. Gas stations? Not ours. Convenience stores? Often owned by others who profit off our dollars while rarely reinvesting in our streets, and sometimes looking down on us in the process. So the pattern becomes clear. Black cities run by Black mayors, but wealth controlled and extracted by everyone else. And the same Democratic leadership that asks for our loyalty never prioritizes building real independent power for us. That's not empowerment. That's stagnation disguised as solidarity. And this is the point. Until Black communities build, control, and protect our own institutions, schools, training centers, capital networks, business infrastructure, we will remain consumers instead of owners, spectators instead of architects. So I'll end it like this. What do you think? Because the patterns are right in front of us. It's your boy Oz, back at it again. Make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, and I'll catch you on the next one.